Good morning, everybody. It is 17th of February 2023. And before I get started talking about news, I should first mention that I was going to be going to Brest today. You know, my long planned, hopeful pilgrimage to Brest. And, well, there's a couple subscribers that apparently live in Brest, and they maybe would want to at least meet or something. So I didn't really have time, you know, because this was a split decision. Not enough time really to give them notice, you know, that I was going to be coming there. So I called that one off. And, you know, the weather's kind of cold anyway, as you see. It's about -2 or something. As you see, there's snow laying on the ground now. As a matter of fact, it's snowing right now. That's why I'm undercover. And I'll stay right here. I'll stay put, not really too much walking around. And, you know, if I'm holding a piece of paper, and this time I am, because there's a lot of incredible news coming out, and I didn't want to, you know, to get all smeared, and plus my camera's not waterproof. So those are pretty good reasons not to be walking around outside right now. Looks like some child left something here. I'm at a school, by the way. I don't know. So, and look at these benches down here. I can't even sit on a bench. And you can see the artwork here. Well, I can't sit on those benches. It's almost like sitting on the floor. So, I don't know, they're probably designed for preschool kids. I don't even think I don't know, maybe a kindergartner would sit on there. I don't know. I don't know what the age is. I don't really know that much about the Belarusian school system. So, yeah, I should also say that I'm in Branovici, Belarus. And I didn't say that at the beginning. Normally I would say that. And it's the 17th of February. I probably already said that. But anyhow, I wanted to go to Brest. And you hear, I should mention this ahead of time. I'm not going to be going from script again, which I never do. And I would probably say I want to go to Brest. You know, and it's not because I think that Poland is going to invade Belarus. Gonzalo Lira was talking about, there's a rumor, I don't think he really believes it either, but he's just saying he has to mention it. It's a rumor that that Poland wants to invade Belarus very soon, but Poland is now gearing up for a military conflict, and they're not ready yet. You know, they're ordering supposedly 500 HIMARS. I don't know, some unbelievable military buildup. And I was going to also be mentioning that, but Japan, it was towards the end of my video that I was going to be saying that, but here I'm saying it now at the very beginning, that Japan is also undergoing a huge military buildup. And I don't know. I don't know if they really think it's real that they, you know, trying to imply that China is going to be attacking them or something like that. Australia is also building up. Obviously, the USA has something to do with this, maybe encouraging them to build up a military, because I don't think any rational thinking person would think that China is going to be invading Japan and Australia or whatnot. Maybe they're just building up militaries to protect what they see as their interests. Maybe that China might have some designs on some contested islands or whatever. You know how that goes. And as you know, NATO, I don't know, I'll get into some other things. I don't want to jump ahead of myself here. I got a lot to say. So, how I really wanted to start off is I was going to say that, you know, that the first casualty of any war is always the truth. And that's true in this case as well. And it's oftentimes it's based on both sides. And in this case, it's mostly just one side. Russia, instead of lying, they just maybe just don't say anything. They just keep their mouths shut. And I don't know if they have that much to lie about, because they are overwhelmingly more positioned to win in a military conflict as opposed to Ukraine. So they don't really even have to lie. And if they're losing, you know, people on the front, I think at some point in time they have been mentioning that they lost a lot of people at certain points. But most people are predicting that the ratio of Ukrainian soldiers losing their lives on the front as compared to the Russian is 8 to 1. Ukrainians lose 8 and Russia loses 1. Some people put I've heard people, I don't think it's true, they said the estimate's up to 15 to 1, but that seems to be too hard to believe. So I don't know, you never know. You never know. So especially when Russia is on the offensive, you lose more men when you're on the offensive usually, but Russia has such a strong artillery, that I guess you'd say softening. They soften up or I think Scott Ritter, what does he call that, to preparing the battlefield or something like that, to decimate those forces and then move the infantry in, or even armor in after using artillery to, decimate the enemy as much as they can. But Russia's moving slowly. I never was in military planning and all that, so I don't know. I had 7 years in the military. Mine is any little experience that I have is more a little bit on infantry maneuvers and things like that. A lot of things also behind the front lines, such as intelligence and all that, because I was in an intelligence battalion in the 8th Infantry Division for 4 years, and I was 3 years working for the commanding general, of U.S. forces in Germany, directly for the commanding general, by the way. So, and that was sometimes you get more intelligence in that position than I did when I was in intelligence battalions. So it's very, very strange how that all works out. But anyway, we're going to talk about a lot about Seymour Hersh, and what's going on here. And also, I should mention, I didn't even write it in my notes. I'll mention that right now because otherwise I'll forget about it. That apparently the CEO of YouTube has resigned. I guess she wants to spend more time with her family. And apparently, this guy, what's his name, Mohan, I believe. Anyway, the new guy who was her assistant, who's taken over, is promising to be even worse with censorship than she was. So, and he's saying that people, such as my channel, he only wants to keep authoritative sources on YouTube and highly depress or maybe eliminate non-authoritative sources. And what does he mean by authoritative sources? So even somebody like Robert Malone, who talked about the medicine that you put in your arm because of a pandemic, and Robert McCullough, who was actually recognized as one of the best heart specialists in the world. I suppose because they don't like those people's information, they will delete them, even if they're very authoritative, or Scott Ritter for that matter, Colonel Douglas McGregor, they probably would not call them authoritative. Only like probably CNN or something like that. And I don't know, maybe they'll even take off Tucker Carlson, number one opinion news broadcaster in the United States, if not in the world. So I guess that's not authoritative. I'm just guessing. We're going to see what happens, But you never know what's going to happen in the future, 1984, boy, it's coming. It's coming around. But anyway, as far as the the first casualty of war being the truth, I was the first time I really remember hearing about this is when I was in history courses in the University of Washington. One of the great professors, a great lecturer, even knighted by the Queen of England, and a friend of John Kennedy, the President of the United States, other presidents and other heads of state. He was a lecturer, and he specialized in German history, and that's one reason why I like German history too. And he was a very good lecturer. But he was talking, it was in a history class of Europe from, I'm not even sure the dates, because we did a lot of the prehistory, probably 1914 to 1945 or whatever. And he was talking about World War I when the British and the Americans were saying that the Germans at that time were raping nuns and things like that. And it's, and I wrote in here too, it's very much like the, and like the Iraqis throwing babies out of incubators in Kuwait or something. Remember when they were passing that one around during the Iraq War? And then it brought to mind, so I said, there's another one. And it was, if you remember Jessica Lynch, supposedly U.S. Special Forces came in and rescued her, that she was a captive by the Iraqis. But apparently, a little bit more plausible of probably what happened was, she was in a convoy and the truck crashed or something like that, and she was unconscious, and possibly the Iraqi soldiers found her there. She was just a private. She was a private. And then they probably brought her, believe it or not, to a hospital to be treated. And no military around, but just because she was unconscious, they brought her there, and then just left her, and they just left, and a nearby hospital. And the U.S., I'm not even sure that this is all true. I'm just kind of going by what information was available. Apparently the U.S., using this as a PR campaign, staged a rescue of Jessica Lynch, and they even filmed it. And I remember seeing the footage of American soldiers, shooting guns and stuff. They didn't shoot anybody because there was no military there to shoot. Just some doctors and nurses and all that, and they were very shocked when the Americans came in, and they came in and supposedly rescued Jessica Lynch, not a military person in sight, and it was a great rescue mission or something. And ironically, that mission, it took place on April Fool's Day of 2003, the 1st of April Fool's Day. What does that tell you too? I don't know. It's just ironic. It's maybe a coincidence. I don't know. But to me, I don't know. It doesn't seem like coincidence. It seems like it was on purpose to, how these things, like 9/11 happened on September 11th, and it was the same day that George Bush the First proclaimed the New World Order, and that was the attack of 9/11. It's just kind of strange that these sort of things happen, and they have these corresponding dates. I don't know. I'm telling you, somebody ought to look into all this stuff. And yeah, so she had zero resistance. They even made a movie about this. They made a movie, and it's and it also brought to mind this Brittany Griner, the cannabis girl, the one that was in Russian prison because she had some marijuana or marijuana products or whatever with her when she's the basketball player, and well known, and she was in prison. And it's very strange that since they did a prisoner swap, there has not been any interviews, anything whatsoever broadcast. And even though there's, they showed her, on footage of cameras or something like that, but apparently, I don't know, and I've heard that the story she has to tell is not derogatory towards the Russians. So that's why you're not hearing it, because she's not bad-mouthing Russia and the Russians, and that's why you don't hear that story, because the U.S. does not want to broadcast something that does not demonize Russia. So you know about that. Uh-oh, I guess I have to probably stop here. They're probably telling me what to go. Wait a minute, put it on pause. Well, I'm back. Now I'm near a busy road. I hope you can hear me. I don't have my microphone on today. Maybe I should stop this video and put on a microphone. But I was kicked out of that schoolyard. I mean, there's nothing wrong with some old guy hanging around in a schoolyard where there's young kids. No, anyway, I'm going to put my other microphone on. I'll be back with you in just a second here. Okay, now I'm back. Military truck, looky there. No, there are, I don't know if I should say this, but there are quite a few Russians. As a matter of fact, that one's filled with troops there. There are probably quite a few Russians around, even here. It's a big, well, I don't say that. I won't get too far. I don't want to get in trouble. Even though other forces already know everything that I would be saying, but I'm not gonna get into that. I don't want to get into any trouble here with any government, at least in the future, or nothing like that. But anyway, let's get to the real incredible news. It was more news than it was just brought out, I think, recently, and a lot of this was brought out by John Mark Dougan. It's very loud here, but I'm not going to get kicked out of a bus shelter. So, but anyway, John Mark Dougan, he's a U.S. guy like me, but he's in Moscow, I believe. He's in Russia, and he did a lot of work, as you notice, if you know of his channel. And he's worked a lot with Mike Jones at I, Earl Grey, and they did a lot of charity work for the people in the Donbass area, you know, being bombed by the Russians and all. And he's also broken quite a few stories too. It's not really been paid much attention to, but he's found people, you know, involved in illegal trade, for example, in Ukraine. You know, like they know a lot about like the organ trade and drugs and all that sort of stuff, and how Kiev is financing a lot of their operations there, and maybe the weapons trade as well. You know, some very shocking stuff. But in this one, he was contacted by a service member, a U.S. military or a Navy service member, I'll just say, U.S. military Navy service member that was right there on the spot when they were dropping divers off to sabotage the pipelines. And you know, I could read just briefly explain what John Mark Dougan said, but you'll be hearing probably a lot more about this in the near future. I don't know if Alex Cristoforo is going to mention this or anybody else. Maybe Alexander Mercouris will probably pick it up, at least mention this, because it's just more information than what Seymour Hersh has been putting out. Anyway, but this U.S. service member even sent his photograph on the ship to prove that he's actually was on one of these ships in that naval exercise for the United States, and showed him a lot of other evidence, probably to corroborate what he said is true, and you know, what was happening there in the Baltic Sea area. He was witnessing that the diving equipment that these people had, you know, first their appearance, what they looked like, they had strange haircuts. I don't know if he mentioned how many of these divers there were, but I'm assuming that there were probably more than just 2 or 3 or 4, maybe about 5, and then they were accompanied with plain clothes people, you know, probably some of the planners of this event, as you know. And you know who that was. What was it? I keep forgetting his name. I forgot it in the last video as well. But one of these people, probably from the, I think it was, I almost had that name. It's not important, just some joker. And you know that Victoria Nuland is also involved in this too. I'll get around to Victoria Nuland in a few minutes. But these divers, they had weird haircuts, mustaches, and he said they looked more like terrorists than they did any sort of Navy personnel. And then you remember when they were talking about there was some sort of an incident that British divers were awarded high medals or something like a few weeks after these incidents occurred. And I'm just kind of wondering if these were actually U.S. service members, or if they were just from some other NATO country. You know, so I mean, that's something to keep in mind. So you got to remember those events. You know, you know. So I don't know if this story is true. So I've already said all that stuff, and they even mentioned that these divers were talking with the admiral of the 6th Fleet. It was his rank was Vice Admiral Eugene Black. So, but immediately after that, the service member did not mention that name, because immediately after, you know, this naval exercise, the 6th Fleet got a new commanding admiral, and the name was mentioned there, but I'm assuming it was still that Eugene Black. I don't think that the new commanding general would actually be coming and taking command before, you know, his time, you know, was up there, before General Black's time was up. And these divers were supposed to be doing anti-ship mine work, you know, demining ships, and they each of them had some kind of a smaller, somewhat smaller box with them, and they went diving. And normally, the service member said that U.S. Navy equipment allows divers to be underwater for 4 hours maximum, and these people had a lot more sophisticated equipment with them, even though it looked like it was the U.S. Military equipment, but they were under for more than 6 hours, so a long time. And when they came back, they didn't have their black boxes with them, and then they were flown out by helicopter immediately after that. So what does that tell you? That John Mark Dougan is doing some incredible things, you know. Here we have a bus, a Belarusian bus made in Minsk. As a matter of fact, where my new apartment's going to be, it's only like, I don't know, 50, 100 meters away down the street or something from where I'm going to be living when I get to Minsk. where they made that bus, by the way. And they send these buses to Europe as well. That's just some little side information. Yeah, but John Mark Dougan is not, of course, divulging who his source is, because you got to protect the source. And also recently, just a few days ago, you might have already heard this, but Seymour Hersh was saying that 8 detonation charges were placed on these pipelines, and only 6 of them went off. So you can assume that the 2 branches of Nord Stream 2, that the one that did not get blown up, that was probably the 2 charges that didn't blow. Apparently because they were underwater for more than 2 months, and as Seymour Hersh said, that the Norwegians were involved, and they had used a transmitter device, that they can trigger off of a buoy. Sorry about it being so loud here. I hope you can hear me. But they used a buoy. They planted a buoy, and they detonated these bombs, with a buoy. And also, you have to realize that I think it was on February 22nd, just a few days from now, the Russians have requested a United Nations Security Council meeting, to discuss this event, the Nord Stream 2, probably in light of this information that was, put out by Seymour Hersh. He's probably one of the best investigative journalists ever. So, and I think with every time he comes up with some of these bombshell reports, the U.S. media always discounts it and calls him some sort of a phony or something like that, and then they always turn out to be true. So I think this time he's definitely, and he's older and wiser, and as you know, that this is probably very true. All of this Nord Stream 2 information. As I say, it's very loud here. Lots of these cars coming by. Now a bus is going to be stopping here. I don't know what to say. Maybe if I talk more down into this microphone, you're going to hear me a lot better, But there's also more contrasting information, coming out of the U.S. State Department. But in light of all the things that are happening here at the end of February, you have to be prepared that there might be something really crazy coming on in this last week of February coming up here. With I think there is. I'm not sure if it's happened yet. I think maybe it's on the 19th. There's supposed to be a lot of protests, anti-war protests all over. And then there's the meeting for the Security Council, which is on the 22nd. And I believe there's a Karen, she's a retired lieutenant colonel, Karen Kwiatkowski. And she is even warning that there might be, in the near future, a false flag event, or at least some kind of a terrorist event somewhere, close to the level of what happened with this Nord Stream 2 attack. And I'm not talking about this train crash, the train crash in Ohio. That's, that would not be a distraction, because I think the U.S. is trying to use other things like weather balloons called spy balloons or something like that, in order to detract away from all of the bad news that they don't want to be reported. And this incident, I'll mention that right now, as a matter of fact, because talking about it, is in Ohio, this crash of this train carrying toxic chemicals, terrible stuff. And then they decided to burn it, and this cloud sent these flames all over, and tens of thousands of wild and domestic animals dying all over the place. And a lot of people are projecting that the human beings that have been exposed to these fumes, and then possibly the bad water that's, there's going to be a much higher cancer rate, maybe in a year, 2 years from now, from all of these, this exposure to these chemicals. Anyway, it's some people are calling it the United States Chernobyl event, and the U.S. news, mostly the mainstream news, doesn't even want to cover this. Sometimes you can watch a main news event and they will not even talk about this. Really, really terrible stuff. But anyway, some of the most shocking news that, again, it's Victoria Nuland. She never fails to disappoint. I mean, She never fails. She never disappoints. Never fail it, whatever. Anyway, she's not disappointing when she comes up with her statements. And if you've been hearing lately, broadcast all over the place, that Anthony Blinken, head of the State Department, is coming out and saying, we are not encouraging Ukraine to attack the Crimea. Oh, that's a red line for Putin, and we don't want any kind of a confrontation and blah, blah, blah. And, and you know that the United States really does want to cross the red lines. They want to push Russia. They want to push Russia. That's called a provocation. They want to provoke Russia into doing something to make Russia look bad. So, and Victoria Nuland, to contrast what Anthony Blinken is saying, she came out and said that they're heavily in support of Ukraine attacking the Crimea. They're doing everything they can. So, and I think I even have a quote here somewhere. She's the Undersecretary of State, for Blinken. And in my days, when I was working for the General, I think I probably met a few Undersecretaries of State, Undersecretary of Defense, and you can't believe how many vice and unders and all this kind of stuff they have all over in the U.S. military, because they steal the American taxpayers' money, and then they can come out with all kinds of assistant this and deputy secretary of this I mean, you can't believe it, and I don't even think most of them have a real job, They just go around and open up their mouth and give some kind of opinion based on whatever their boss says. But in this case, as you know, and Alex Christoforou said so rightly, the real boss of the State Department, at least in this affair, is Victoria Nuland. She runs the entire show when it comes to Ukraine, and it's very obvious. And she says that they very much want to attack the Crimea. And I've been saying, for a long, long time, and I still maintain this, based on some of the times when I've spoken to these people, in my time in the military, which is back in the 1980s, that the U.S. wants the Crimea. That is the main goal of this whole provocation, and everything that they're doing right now in Ukraine has to do with Ukraine and Russia provocations, is the U.S. wants to get the Crimea. They want to get the Crimea because they can neutralize Russia, they believe, at least after they get the Crimea. So, after that is being said here, and of course, Victoria Nuland will probably even admit that. I think she's saying, Ukraine will not be safe unless we get rid of Russia's military presence in the Crimea. Which, I wish she couldn't explain this to us, in some kind of detail. So why is that so? But it's more like projection. The United States wants the Crimea more than anything else. Because then, at least I've been always heard, then Russia ceases to be anything what resembles an empire or something then, So, but, you ask yourself, who do you believe? Do you believe Blinken or do you believe Victoria Nuland? So loud here. It's just like Victoria Nuland coming out and talking about these biochemical labs. Russia found them, and the United States said, oh, no, that's not true. Oh, that's not true. Hunter Biden, with one of his companies called Rosemont Sentica, they're not involved with biological weapons. And then Victoria Nuland, she came out and she admitted not to 30 biological weapons laboratories, but she admitted to, I believe, 46 of them. It really makes you wonder. Somebody's not getting the information here. Maybe she wasn't told that she's not allowed to be saying that. But it's actually shocking, revealing, and I'm not going to say relieving, but at least we're knowing the truth through Victoria Nuland, And but she runs the whole show, obvious. Oh, and another shocking thing, very telling information. Victoria Nuland. There's been some kind of a discussion right now about Israel supplying weapons to Ukraine, and of course they've been supplying weapons to Ukraine, but maybe they haven't amounted to that much. Even though you might hear, they haven't gotten any weapons and they're still looking into it. And I think Benjamin Netanyahu came out and says, we're not going to do that. We have to have a relationship with Russia as well. But of course they've been giving weapons to Ukraine, and they've admitted that, and they've said they have, that they're going to give more weapons to Ukraine as well. But let's see what it was. What is actually controversial is Israel giving Ukraine early warning systems, which will be able to tell very early on whenever a missile has been launched, a cruise missile from any point in Russia, or at least anywhere near this conflict. So Ukraine would be much more successful in either shooting it down or evacuating or something like that, depending on the length of time that it takes for this missile to arrive somewhere. And from the trajectory, you just need a short period of time. Maybe, I don't know. These things are very sophisticated. You might know, based on the speed, after like 1 minute, and the trajectory of the launch of where that missile is going to be landing, and then any sort of a potential target, you can evacuate the people from that place. I know a lot about this stuff when I was in the military. They have some really incredible things. We had laser markers. I'll tell you about that one too. And then they have X-ray systems somehow. I don't even understand how that works. And it's hard to believe, but they can, from a satellite, they can look through the different floors of the building and see through the roof and through the top floor and then the next floor. And I think as far as the third floor down, they can see people in the floor and tell that people are moving around inside of a room in a building, And then they have laser pointer systems we had back in those days. And you can mark something with a laser and walk away from that. And I don't know how long the period of time. I never used it, but I know that in our unit we had those when I was stationed on the border of East Germany. We were the first contact for any sort of Soviet forces to come through. So I was at this point. It's called Wildflecken. And soldiers didn't want to go there. There's even been incidences where soldiers have committed suicide when they were told that they're going to be stationed in Wildflecken, And what do they call? They had different names. The Rock. It's called The Rock. And it was not a very pleasant place most of the time. It's a military training area as well. It's kind of like Grafenwehr or Hohenfels. They were also famous military training sites, in West Germany at that time when I was in there. But anyway, we had these laser systems, and we had kind of a special forces type units as well. I worked a little bit with them. I wasn't actually one of them, but anyway, some amazing equipment. And you mark something, and then a missile can zero in on that target even when you're not there. So, but they're probably a lot more sophisticated things now if they had those sort of things back then. I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to move away and go to some place where it's a lot more quiet. The snow is let up a little bit here, and everybody looking at me. Also, probably when they hear my language, there's not that many people that are foreign in Belarus. Most people are speaking Russian, maybe even the foreigners. Minsk is a little bit different, but here in Baranovichi, virtually you see very few people speaking foreign languages. But of course there are military people here training on the jets, on Sukhois and MiGs and whatnot. I thought this guy was following me back here. But anyway, these people are walking in the streets. Some of them from Africa. And so anyway, let me get back to the good stuff. Or actually, all the stuff is good, isn't it? So yeah. But anyway, okay. What I was getting to, and I didn't get to because I like to get off on tangents. It's kind of distracting walking around. I get off on tangents because if I was sitting at some kind of a desk or something, looking at cards or whatever, I could do much easier. I don't really know how Alex Cristoforo does it. He can stay probably on topic. I don't know if he ever skips things. I think he probably has cards with little things written on them, so he knows what topics to talk about. And he's so fascinated by a lot of the news systems, news things that he remembers everything that he read at least for a short period of time, you know, until more news comes out. But Victoria Nuland, you can't believe it. She said, she said that if Netanyahu, I think it was, if gives these weapons to Ukraine, that she, Victoria Nuland, will give him a Nobel Prize, as if she's the one that decides. I think I have her words here. In her words, if Bibi Netanyahu can get Putin out of the Ukraine, that's what it was, I'm going to give him the Nobel Prize. So I guess it's Victoria Nuland that decides on who gets a Nobel Prize. It sounds like real hegemony and arrogance to me, but you know, you have to ask yourself, I mean, who gave the Nobel Prize to Obama when he was nowhere near any position to deserve a Nobel Peace Prize? He had never made any decision, never in a position to make any decision that would warrant him getting a Nobel Peace Prize. So I'm sort of wondering, and you know, you see Sweden now wanting to get into NATO, you know, and it's temporarily being blocked by the laws of NATO. I think Hungary hasn't agreed with that, and neither has Turkey. And it seems that Turkey is the biggest obstacle right now, because Turkey, you know, it's about, you know, Sweden, as you know, supporting Kurdish terrorists or whatever, and Turkey really doesn't like that. Turkey doesn't like a lot of things concerning Kurdish terrorists any more than what Russia likes about, not, well, I can't say that, about people with that ideology in Ukraine. So, and that's another thing I'm going to talk about. I forgot to mention that. I should have mentioned it when I was talking about this woman, whatever her name is, probably Karen of some sort, resigning from YouTube, that I'm probably going to be keeping this video, putting it back on YouTube, and I don't even know about putting on Rumble. I don't get many views on Rumble at all. It's very strange. I don't know, maybe at some point in the future I should keep the channel open for sure. But nobody really ever goes there, and people go to YouTube, you know, more often. And I think I had a subscriber or two saying that they really don't get Rumble where they're at. So it's like it buffers very, very long. And when I'm downloading onto Rumble, it takes a long time to download. It takes a long time to download onto YouTube, but even longer onto Rumble. So, you know, it'd be good if I could get that information to Rumble, but you can't contact any of these tech companies. You know, I had some problem with Yahoo, and I still have a Yahoo email, but you can't contact these people. You cannot contact them. They have no contact us button or anything on there on most of these people. And I even had a problem. I used to be in AOL, you know, America Online, I guess is what it was called back in those days. Yeah, and I don't know. That was screwed up, and you couldn't contact them. So they, you know, I got them to cancel us. You know, that's the only way, is just stop paying. You know, back then you had to pay for America Online, and so, you know, that's the only way to get out, is to just not pay those jokers. So let me see what other kind of stuff I have here. Yeah, I'm getting close to the end here, you know, but I already mentioned, I think, about Gonzalo Lira talking about this rumor circulating, you know, about Belarus getting attacked by Poland. And that's not going to happen, not for a long time. Poland is in nowhere near ready, especially not to attack, not even Belarus. Belarus has a smaller army, but I think they're a lot more efficient military than Poland. Poland is actually just now getting retrained and refitted, and you know, and building up. Of course, there are American forces there. You got a lot of NATO all over in the Baltic states and Poland, and they've been building up steadily for a long time, getting more and more and more companies, battalions, and brigades and armies there. They probably got, I don't know, I think I remember over 200,000 troops already on the borders of Belarus, you know, the Baltic states and Poland. And they're trying to build up even much, much more. Of course, Poland, I think alone, they want to have at least 250,000 army in a very short period of time. You know, and Russia. Some people are saying that I heard, I can't remember, even though it was a reputable vlogger on YouTube, I think somebody was saying that Russia has 100,000 troops in Belarus. That's you know, I'm glad I don't remember who said that, and I don't really like to say it, but that's nonsense. Why would Russia put 100,000 troops in Belarus, you know, ready troops, when they are needed in Ukraine? You know, at this present time, they still haven't gotten all their troops set up yet in Ukraine, you know, and that's where the hot spot is. Of course, Russia will have troops in Belarus because, like, as Scott Ritter says, they have to watch their flank, you know, and Belarus has their own little military. And there's no sign yet that NATO is getting ready or even going to attack, you know, through Belarus. You know, it could happen. And Lukashenko has been reaffirming himself that the only time Belarus, any attack will be launched from Belarus, I believe, or that, I'm not sure exactly what he meant, or that Belarusian military, well, I think that's what he said, that the Belarus would get involved in this military conflict is if Ukraine attacks even with one soldier, if one soldier even attacks Belarus, you know. So that's not really, you know, he keeps his word pretty well, Lukashenko. That's, you know, one thing I like about the leadership here. You know, they, at least when they say something, they actually mean it. It's not like the United States, where you don't know what the heck is going to be going on. Whenever sit out in colder weather for a long time, I think the temperature is, it's only like right around 0. So, you know, normally you'd see snow, so that you say, oh, it must be freezing, but it's, I think it's right around 0. So, but you see like puddles of water. They were freezing, and cars go through, and you see water. I see ice on. I'm looking right now. It's on some puddles, and there's ice on them, a very thin layer of ice. Yeah, so, it's like I said, it's around 0. You know, at least I found a place where I can shelter. There is somebody in Russia, a Russian. And of course, this is probably mirrored in the United States when you see there seems to be some kind of an attack on the food supply. Not just in the United States, you see a lot of these, you know, even, I think there was even some fertilizer factories attacked, which is not food, of course, but they're like some of the major, I don't know if it's chicken for eating or chicken for laying eggs, but anyway, catching fire, these big complex, I don't know what, it's not a chicken factory. I can't remember the word right now, but anyway, this places where they're raising chickens, or maybe just hatcheries where they're, you know, chickens lay eggs or whatever, and they're like catching fire or being destroyed. And then you see this train crash, you know, and tens of thousands of wildlife and domestic animals are all dead. You know, really crazy stuff. And then you mix that with the fact that Bill Gates is buying up a lot of farmland. It makes me wonder if Bill Gates is buying this farmland because, you know, all land is going to have a value in the future, and he's maybe looking into the somewhat distant future, maybe when he is, I don't know, in his 70s, or I don't know how old he is right now. He looks like he's in his 70s, but I don't think he is. I think he's maybe, I don't know, he might be 60. But maybe 10 years from now, when everybody gets tired and starts rebelling about eating bugs, because as you know, the objective is to get us to all eat bugs. So, and I think people are going to maybe not like bugs so much. So, I don't know, maybe farmland is going to start become more valued. People are going to be rebelling and having a black market on selling real meat and real food rather than the bugs or whatever. I don't know. Going to probably be a lot of vegetarians, you know, coming around after they get us all eating bugs. Bill Gates, as you know, he loves beef. You know, he loves beef. So maybe he wants to raise cattle, maybe just for himself. I don't know. I had a photograph And I might be able to put this on this site. And it's written in Russian, but the word, how you pronounce it, believe it or not, is called Bill Gates. Bill Gates, Bill Gates. And it's a company here in Baranovichi called Bill Gates. And I think they make like shampoos and things like that. So, and somebody took me by there, and I had my photo taken by, I think it was a door, something like this maybe, and it has the word Bill Gates. If I find that, if I still have it, I'll put that up with this video. And I believe that's all I have for right now. I don't know. If anything, it was probably some little information that I should have talked about. Oh, yes, there was something I wanted to talk about. I told you that I would maybe interview a person about Russian classes coming over here. And, you know, I found a lot of the information. I'll say a lot of the information right now, so, you know, in case we forget to talk about it when I do have an interview with her. And she said she's about ready almost any time. Hopefully when she's there, I'll take the camera, and then, you know, probably my luck she won't be there. But in any case, they have dorms and classes. They will have a class if there's at least 6 people. If 6 people sign up for the class, they will have the class. And in my case, I think they had 6 people. I was the 6th one. And oh, somebody's inside here. And then it ended up only being 2 of us. So yeah, and then yesterday I was the only one there. You know, there's somebody behind this door. Somebody's working inside here. Very strange. So I probably better go unless somebody opens up the door on me. And anyway, I'm ending this video. So if you haven't subscribed, if you are a person that's just seeing my channel, I mean, if it interests you, and then things will be a little bit different when I move to Minsk. I'll be talking a little bit more about Belarus, and, you know, maybe go into places of, you know, tourist attraction places. And of course, when the weather gets a lot better, I'll be outside. And my place, I'll be in my place, so it'll be a lot nicer. I can sit down on a desk and be a little bit more organized, which is what I plan on doing. And in any case, push the like button. Push the like button. You have to push the like button so that I know that whatever I'm saying might be appealing or not. So, but anyway, until the next time, and it might be the time when I go talk to you know, the lady that does speak English and talk about the Russian courses. So I hope so. And I still want to go to Brest, you know, to see the fortress before Poland gets there and takes it over, because it's right on the border there. So, okay, till the next time. See you then.